The boy opened the bathroom door. He saw the nanny peeing standing up.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh my God.
Chris, wait!
He rushed to his sister's room to complain because he was too nervous to organize his words. Although the sister did not understand the situation, but still heard that the nanny is not normal people.
All right, listen to me. I'm not who you think I am.
Yeah, no shit.
Watch your mouth, young man.
Until they heard this familiar voice. Siblings realized that the nanny in front of them was their father.
Dad?
Yeah.
And the reason why he had to pretend to be the nanny to blend into the family was really out of necessity. Daniel was originally a voice actor. He could switch between different roles with ease. But he had too many ideas and liked to add scenes to the script. He always made the producers unhappy. So he fired the producers before he was fired. As a father, Daniel is definitely one of the most popular types of children. It was his son's birthday. He rented out animals from the zoo for the party. The kid and his friends were having a blast. But as a husband, Daniel's wife couldn't stand the man who never grew up. After the party, they had a huge fight. Miranda got tired of cleaning up his mess and filed for divorce.
I want a divorce.
It wasn't until then that Daniel realized the extent of the problem. Soon the couple was in court for custody. The judge decided that Daniel had no steady job and gave Miranda custody of the 3 children. And Daniel could only see the kids every Saturday. That means he only has 1 day a week to spend with his children. At the end of the trial, everyone was sad to see their father go. Daniel moved into a messy apartment, and he had to find a job as soon as possible, or he'll never be eligible for custody. On the recommendation of the community manager, he was offered a job at a television station. Only here he's working as a porter at the bottom of the ladder. Though he didn't like it, he could only accept the reality now. It's hard to wait until the weekend to be reunited with the children. But they only had a short dinner at the rented house. Soon Miranda arrived early to pick up the kids. Daniel was not happy. It was an hour earlier than promised. Miranda says she can't help it. In addition to taking care of things at work, she now has to find a nanny. Hearing this, Daniel suddenly had a bold idea. When his ex-wife wasn't looking, he secretly changed the phone number on the job ad. The next day he started bombarding Miranda with all kinds of strange voices. Years of voiceover experience came into play here.
I just want to know one thing. Are your kids well behaved? Or do they need like a few light slams every now and then?
I'll have to get back to you.
Wow.
Yeah, my name is Ilsa Immelmann, and I want to know how many children do you have?
I have 2 girls and a boy.
Oh, a boy. I don't work with the males, because I used to be one.
After being tortured for a whole day, Miranda's heart was exhausted. The time was ripe for Daniel to call again.
Hello? I'm calling in regards to the ad I read in the paper.
Hearing such an elegant and kind voice, Miranda was like a breath of fresh air and asked for the name of the person she was calling. Daniel was confused. He hadn't thought of a name to pretend to be. Luckily, there was a newspaper nearby. He found a name from it.
Doubtfire.
I beg your pardon?
Doubtfire, dear? Mrs. Doubtfire.
Well, I look forward to meeting you.
Oh, lovely, dear. Me too.
Miranda was very satisfied and made an appointment for the interview. And then the fun began. Daniel found his brother, who was working as a stylist on the set. He was more than happy to hear that his brother wanted to become a woman. After a bit of manipulation, Daniel was transformed into Cleopatra. But apparently that's not the right image for a nanny. Then he turned into a pretty blonde, which still didn't feel right. So they put a plaster cast on his entire face to create a mask. After a morning's work, they put on thick stockings. Finally, the ideal nanny was finalized. During the interview, the moment my ex-wife opened the door, Miranda's heart was instantly captured by the kindness she felt. The next step was to get her 3 children to accept her. Luckily, with all these years of understanding, with just a few simple words, 2 of the children's interest was piqued. Only the older sister, who was a bit more understanding, couldn't accept the nanny. She always thought her mom shouldn't have divorced her dad. Still, she didn't object too much in order to save her mother the trouble of. So Daniel became their nanny as Doubtfire. After his day job at the TV station, he had to find a public restroom to turn into Doubtfire and take care of the kids when they came home from school. If it were him, he'd be playing with everyone. He wouldn't have tried to force his kids to do their homework. But now he began to understand the responsibilities of a father. When he saw them watching TV, Daniel threw the remote control into the fish tank. And he made it a rule that if they didn't do their homework, they'd have to clean up after themselves. The kids were a bit confused, but they didn't dare to resist. So they cleaned up the house. He himself, however, lounged on the couch and read the newspaper. Soon they realized that homework was easier than cleaning. So they volunteered to do their homework. Next, Daniel needs to get dinner ready before Miranda gets off work. But he had never cooked before. Even after learning from a book, he clumsily poured the spice cap into the pot, and the whole thing was a disaster.
Hey. My God, it's clotted. Oh, God.
Suddenly, he smelled something burning. It was the silicone on his chest that caught fire. After putting out the fire, seeing that Miranda is about to leave work, the house is still a mess. He found a housekeeper to clean up the room. Then he ordered takeout and prepared the food in style. Until his ex-wife came home just as the kids were coming down the stairs from their homework. The house was in perfect order. And to top it all off, Doubtfire had prepared a lovely candlelit dinner. It was like a fantasy. It made Miranda even more sure that Doubtfire was the babysitter she needed. Seeing my mother smile for the first time in a long time, her sister finally accepted the change Doubtfire had brought. She also apologized for her earlier rudeness. And that's how Daniel gained the family's trust. His disguise was flawless. Even the old bus driver was mesmerized.
Hope you have something nice and warm to go home to.
To cook well, Daniel started learning to cook on TV. But his efforts paid off. After a while, he was able to cook a decent dinner without ordering takeout. And now he gets to spend time with his kids every day. I can't tell you how happy he is. The days went on like this for a while. Until the night Daniel saw Miranda being driven home by her co-workers. Knowing men as men, he sensed a crisis. The next day, when Daniel came to work as usual, seeing the luxury car parked in front of the door, he broke the other car's tag in a fit of anger. Doubtfire walks into the room and Miranda introduces her co-worker Stu. Then Stu politely greeted Doubtfire. At this point, Daniel wants to get this man out of the house. But that would have been too obvious. All he could do was look for an opportunity to make a little bit of fun of him.
Oh, no, dear. Can you help me with something? I found this outside.
Yes, this is off my Mercedes.
Off your Mercedes, dear. You own that big, expensive car out there. Oh, dear. Well, they say a man who has to buy a big car like that's trying to compensate for smaller genitals, is he?
But that wasn't enough for him. He took Miranda aside. He told her to keep her distance from these men. They take advantage of divorced women when they're most vulnerable. After some advice, Miranda was really affected. She began to wonder if she should go further with Stu, thinking that Doubtfire had been there before. The next day Miranda poured her heart out to her. She was tired of being with Daniel. Daniel was unstable and never took things seriously. He was like her fourth child. Every day she came home to a messy house. In more than 10 years of marriage, she's never felt a share from her husband. It wasn't until Doubtfire came along that she got the life she wanted. It seemed like the right decision to separate from Daniel. So now that she's over her divorce, and she wants to get to know Stu better. Daniel was speechless when he heard this, and a crisis ensued. That night Daniel forgot to lock the door when he went to the bathroom. His son didn't know anyone was in there. When he opened the door, he was shocked. He rushed to tell his sister. Daniel had no choice but to confess his identity. Luckily, the two kids understood his good intentions and promised to keep it a secret from their mom. That day, Stu invited Miranda and her family to a pool party. But Doubtfire couldn't swim under his disguise. He could only watch his family having fun with Stu. The wine in his glass was gone before he knew it. That night Daniel returned to the TV station in despair. While everyone was off duty, he picked up the props for the children's program and practiced his voiceover. This scene was discovered by the station manager. Seeing Daniel's original way of performing, the station manager was amused. He wanted to invite Daniel to do a program and asked him to come to the restaurant on Friday to talk about it. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so Daniel took it very seriously. However, when he turned into Doubtfire, he learned that Stu had invited the family to the restaurant on Friday for Miranda's birthday, and he was invited too. Coincidentally, it's the same restaurant as the station manager. Daniel wanted to say no, but his wife and young daughter had made a strong offer. He had no choice but to say yes. On Friday, Daniel arrived at the restaurant with his family as Doubtfire, but when he was about to order, he saw that the manager of the other table was already waiting impatiently. He said he had to go to the restroom, and then quickly changed his clothes in the restroom. After changing, he went to the director's table and said there was a traffic jam. Then the two of them drank and talked about work. But before they could get to the end of their conversation, Daniel heard his kids waiting for him. He told the station manager that he had to go to the restroom. He hurriedly changed his identity and went back to his family's table. He kept going to the restroom and switching identities throughout the night. When he was ordering, he heard that Stu was allergic to chili peppers. He sneaked into the kitchen and sprinkled a bottle of chili peppers while he was changing. But due to the heavy drinking, he forgot to change back to Daniel. He appeared in front of the station manager as Doubtfire.
Can I help you, man?
Oh, sorry I'm late. After all those scotches, I had to piss like a racehorse.
Daniel?
Yeah?
Why in God's name are you dressed like a woman?
Daniel realized he hadn't changed back. Looking at the director's surprised eyes, he said that it's a new look for the new program, as an old lady to tell stories to the children's audience.
Surprise!
At that moment, Stu's food was brought to the table. He took a bite without knowing and instantly choked on the chili peppers. Daniel didn't realize he reacted so violently to the chili. This is going to kill someone. No time to think. He crossed the table at the speed of light. He rushed over the table, grabbed Stu, and used the Heimlich maneuver to resuscitate him. After a few rounds, the shrimp in Stu's throat was finally spit out. But due to the strenuous exercise, Daniel's mask also fell off. Miranda couldn't believe the scene in front of her.
Daniel! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! The whole time you were... The whole time!
Oh, I'm sorry, Miranda, please.
Don't talk to me! Don't touch me! Don't touch me! I have to go. We have to leave now. I have to leave. We have to leave now. I have to go.
The drama finally ended when Daniel revealed himself. Shortly after, a second court hearing was held. This time, Daniel didn't have a lawyer. He told the judge that over the past 2 months, that he had realized that he had failed as a husband and a father. He'd fought hard for his job, and made changes for his kids and his ex-wife. But despite all that, the judge still felt that cross-dressing would be a bad influence on the children. This time the judge took away his visitation rights for 1 day, which meant that without court supervision, he would never see his child again. Miranda started looking for a new nanny, but they realized that no one could replace Doubtfire. Suddenly, life was a mess, and the children began to miss the old days. Suddenly, Doubtfire's voice came on the TV. It turned out that the station manager had taken Daniel's advice to start a separate children's program for him. After the show went on the air, the ratings unexpectedly climbed to #1. Watching this all too familiar character, Miranda suddenly realized that this man had really changed her. So she came to the studio to tell Daniel.
They miss her terribly.
What are you saying?
Daniel, the kids need you.
I need them.
A few days later, Miranda called the kids to the door to welcome their new nanny, just like she had done before. And when she opened the door, it was their favorite dad. Miranda has settled the court. The broken mirror is finally reunited. The children's faces are all smiles. And that's how the movie ends. Although it's a comedy movie, it's worth reflecting on the meaning of family and children's education. There's a saying, the maintenance of a family requires the efforts of every member.